Hey folks, this is Picohan from the North American server, and this is the Iron Duke. The map is Fault Line, and of course it is a standard battle. Shout out to my clanmates Bremen in the Krispy Kreme, and Legion of Boom in the John Way. So, the Iron Duke is very similar to the Orion, except that it's at tier 5. So, whereas the Orion is widely considered super OP, the Iron Duke is mediocre to good. For the most part, it has the same sort of strengths. It has very good AG, and can't take citadels, but of course it has the same sort of weaknesses. It's very slow. So, much like other slow battleships, what you want to do is try to stay in a central-ish position if you can. So, like I said, because it's a standard battle, I want to try to find a place where I can hold this flank. Because it's standard battle, you don't necessarily have to push aggressively. You can try to hold the position and see if the enemy will make a mistake. In this case, as with most battleship gameplay, you want to limit the amount of people who can shoot at you and try to work on a single target. In this case, we have a nice line of sight down into these islands, and we can kind of move back and forth as ships come in and out of our line of sight. And here you can see that fire chance at work. We've gotten 11 shell hits, and we've set 3 fires, so it's about almost a 30% chance. We're actually not being spotted here because our destroyer is spotting, and this is just... sometimes you won't have this luxury. But this is making it really easy for us in this game to farm damage on these battleships who are just kind of milling around. And this is what I'm saying. You can kind of let the enemy make mistakes. They're milling around. They're not really trying to push. And it's just kind of letting us farm damage on them. This York is really trying to do the same thing, you can see. But because he doesn't have the spotting that we do, he's kind of getting crapped on. The New Mexico, this is a really good sort of target for the Iron Duke. The shell arcs are actually quite slow, and so you can lob them over island, which is a good thing, but then the bad thing is they take a long time to reach the target. Since the New Mexico is so slow, that's not really a problem, and he burns fairly easily. There's a lot of superstructure. And so there's another fire. Still, though, if you can, you should still focus cruisers. They are still easier to delete, even when you're using the HE. You can get HE citadels still on a lot of cruisers around your matchmaking, though it's not quite as ridiculous as the Orion. There is a recent buff to cruiser fire extinguishing times, but the fire damage is also still better on cruisers because at this tier they can't repair it. So we're just trying to finish off the York there. He keeps peeking around the corner, but he's not really committing to anything. Likewise, to some people, this may seem like pretty boring gameplay, but a lot of times in this game, it's about being patient. if you play any of the competitive game modes, like Ranked or Clan Wars, you'll know that there's a lot of camping and kind of waiting for the right opportunity. And this York is not really moving at the correct time here. Trying to shoot at the Cleveland because the York is just hiding there. I don't actually know who's spotting him. It might be our destroyer still. Let's see if we can finish him off here. We don't manage to finish him off, but Legion finishes him off with Torps in a second here. And so on this flank, it looks like it's just the Cleveland left. And since the score is still fairly even, again, it's still not necessarily a good idea to push up or anything. We're exactly even on points and on ships as well, and even on the exact type of ships. But since the flank is cleared out a little bit, we're going to try to reorient the ship, maybe close to the cap, so we can start working on what were once further away targets. You can see that some of the enemy team is actually trying to do the same thing. They're trying to just defend around the base, but they have not had the benefit of spotting that we have had on this side. So the Cleveland looks like he's trying to run away. Hopefully if he gets out of cover, or out of our line of sight, we can work on the Nagato behind him instead. I think originally I actually wanted to try to push forward, but since the Cleveland actually came back in, I decided to complete the turn instead. There's also the Nelson, who has just showed up, and he's the one who set us on fire twice here. You'll notice that even though it's double fire, I did not repair this immediately, because we still have all 5 of our heals, and as long as the Cleveland is not dead, I thought that we still had a pretty good chance of getting set on fire again, especially because of Nelson in the background. I used the repair here, finally, because the Cleveland went down, and we are starting to get behind this island again, so even if the Nelson sets on fire, we're fairly safe. And of course he does set us on fire. Luckily, it's only a single fire this time. Get some damage on Nelson, but it's not really significant. The problem with the Royal Navy battleships fighting the Nelson is that for most Royal Navy battleships, what are they good at? They're good at HE spam. What does the Nelson have? It has the super heal, and the super heal basically works great against fire damage. Luckily, though, there is a Marblehead who is venturing into the center of the map for whatever reason. And this is a really juicy target for not just the Iron Duke, but the Orion as well, even, because you can land those HE Citadels really easily. Like that. However, here you will also see the effects of the slow shells. I'm not going to lead him very well on these next few shots, I think. So once again, there's no reason to move any further than here. The Nelson and the Nagato are way off in the corner doing who knows what, and it's just the Marblehead, so we can just sit here and wait for him to show up, which he does. I think I was hasty in taking that shot, and they didn't land all that well. I think it was too far back. The Marblehead does try to maneuver and angle a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because the HE can pen him from pretty much everywhere. But still, it's not a very good salvo. I don't know why he's trying to shoot AP at me. That's not really a good ammo choice against a not quite broadside Iron Duke, in my opinion. And so you can see the ship count here. It's 5-3, and I think as soon as the Marblehead goes down, we pretty much have this game in the bag. The Nelson was a little bit worrisome, but my analysis of this game is basically that we held our flank, and we were these three Tier 5 ships holding off their 2 7s, the Nelson and the Nagato, such that on the far flank, which we started to lose at the beginning, they were able to come back because they had the better ships. They probably had Tier 7s versus the red Tier 5s. In some sense, it was smart for the opposing Tier 7s to camp their own base, but they didn't see the... There was some point where they should have gone over to the west side to help their team, and I think they missed that opportunity. So yeah, you can see that the Iron Duke, 50 shell hits, 11 fires. It's about a 20% fire chance. This is against Tier 7 ships as well. That's pretty good. It's not quite as OP as the Orion because it's basically the same slow thing, and you're fighting much faster ships on much bigger maps, so it's harder for you to get into a position that's beneficial for you. But if you can lodge yourself into a position where you can control the engagement and have people push into you, I think it's still very strong, and I think this is true of all the British battleships where the HE is good right up to the Conqueror. So this game is pretty much over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to ram the Nelson to get him out of the game, because I do believe if well played, the Nelson could still be a threat to our team, but fortunately this Nelson was not playing that well, and he's going to let me ram him. So we'll fast forward a little bit and get to the results screen. So looking at the results screen here, that final ram got up to 141,000 damage. We got the high caliber in a tier 7 game, which is pretty good. We were not the first on the team, actually. That goes to the Shores. But like I said, he was probably a tier 7 in a tier 5 world over there on the western flank. But either way, good job to him. Looking at the details, of course, everything we shot was HE. I didn't notice this until I saw this score, that I had almost gotten a wither there if I hadn't been so intent on ramming the Nelson, but I really wanted to get him out of the game. In my mind, I kind of knew that we were close, but I had no idea how close, and it's whatever. So hopefully that replay shows a situation where the Iron Duke can be quite strong. And I think that's it for this replay. Thank you for watching.